What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mongols. This is our reaction show where we're going to break down everything that we saw as the Hounds lost 1-0 to Detroit in their first game of the Jagermeister Cup. I am Mike Sparks. Joining me is Steve Mattiace and Drew, a.k.a. Mondo. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me to talk about something that I don't think any of us are really excited to talk about, but I do think that there are some interesting talking points that we've kind of stumbled upon over the course of the week that I do kind of want to talk to you guys, air quotes, in person about. First, Drew, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Actually had a pretty busy day yesterday. I was at the Steel City Duck Derby, hung out with Amo. And then I went up to, apparently, I didn't know this, there's like 100-year-old library in Aliquippa. That's something new.
It's beautiful.
It's so cool in there. They have the podium that JFK actually gave a speech to, like in 62 or 63. So, and they have like a ton of sports memorabilia from, unfortunately, no soccer greats yet, but definitely some football heroes from Aliquippa. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good day. Steve?
Great weekend. I was down in Frederick, Maryland for the weekend, visiting a really good friend that moved down there last summer. They've got a almost 150-year-old old farmhouse that has lots and lots of projects that he's been working on. One of the cool ones was like it had this whole offspring suite, right? Like the parents build this house and then their oldest gets old enough to get married and they build an addition, but it was trashed when they bought the house. So they had done quite a bit of work on that. And so it's kind of like a little guest / in-laws apartment that they have. So Rory and I were able to stay there. Rory was loving running around on the big open farmland backyard. And so helped Seth with some projects and hung out, went for a bike ride on the C&O Canal yesterday. And ate some really, really, really great pupusas at a local little Latino place. I mean, it was like you turn around everywhere and it's like ethnic food everywhere. I was like, man, I could just eat the entire day and try new things.
That's a great spot. I've had various family members live in the Fredericksburg area over the years, and we've always enjoyed going down there and visiting them. So that's cool.
Loved it. Yeah.
Good.
So,
Good. Yeah, again, a little bit of sun on me that spent most of the weekend outside, either at a soccer game or we're trying to build some raised beds in between all of the rain because spring just kind of, I'll say planting season kind of just sneaks up on you. Like 1 minute it's like, wow, it's really cold and rainy. And then the next thing you know, it's our last frost date. You're like, crap. So
I think what you mean to say, Mike, is spring doesn't exist anymore.
It really doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. And you know, once it is here and you're like, crap, like I said, now you're battling in between rain to try to get stuff done so that you can actually like grow stuff. So that, and we got I think I shared the video with you guys in the Mongol Slack. We got more baby chicks that showed up this week too. So we got 7 more little chicks. Still kind of blows my mind that they just kind of, the second they're born, they stick them in the box and off you go to UPS and not even UPS, USPS. And so I get a phone call like a day or two later, like, hey, come pick up this box that's chirping at us at the post office. And they're just fine. They're doing great. Yeah. So
it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. Yeah. Well, yeah. A lot of fun. Unlike, no, I'm not going to. No, but you know what? Let's just start with "Hey, sir," and then we're gonna see where this conversation goes.
And now, "Hey, sir," 1-minute reactions with Laura Ellen.
Oh boy, my feelings overall about the game do not reflect at all how that game ended. They played so well. I felt like the whole team played so well, and then that one sequence of mistakes / hesitation from Randolph at the end gets us to 0 points. This whole Jagermeister Cup is all new. The whole system is new. They talked about it on the preview show, but goodness, what a letdown. And then that at the end, I thought they were going to get it. I thought they were going to get it in. And I just kept thinking, no, you're so close. That was in. That was, no, it wasn't. Sigh. All right. Listen, I am proud of them. I think they played really well overall. I think it was a good game. That ref was horrible. And props to Detroit for having a great stadium. Up the Hounds.
This has been Hey Sir, 1 minute reactions with Laura Ellen.
Goodness. I don't think I've ever heard anybody enunciate it that way. That just made me laugh. Guys, yeah, so we lose in the dying seconds of that game, 1-0 against Detroit. Had we been able to force a shootout, which is sort of one of the unique aspects of this Jagermeister Cup, we would have at least gotten a point, potentially 2 if we would have won the shootout, which if we are, air quotes, taking this competition seriously, the difference between 3-1 and 3-2 is actually pretty huge. So to even just get a point and be able to squeak it out, alas, it was not to be. Mondo, give me a takeaway from this one.
It felt like there was a lot of unfinished chances. That's like the big, like, I can't say like anything bad about Jacob. I can't say anything bad. I can say a lot of good actually about literally everywhere else. And the only criticism I have is it just felt like unfinished chances. That's what cost us the game. That we had the first, I think the commentators said it the best. The first 60 minutes, this looked like the Hounds are going to walk away with, enough goals to win the game, enough goals to win the group. And it turned into Detroit winning. And I think the commentators were very kind to the Riverhounds all game. But at the same time, yeah, from the way they were playing in that first 60 minutes, it absolutely felt like, that this was the Hounds game to lose. But we just couldn't finish. We were getting in all the right places, and that last touch, that last shot, that last whatever it was missing.
Steve?
Jacob Randolph is here, and I loved it. I mean, he had a really, really good game. I have no idea how to interpret Bob and Bushy's decisions on keepers and who's going to start and who won't and whatnot. But I think Jake did everything he could to give himself a chance to be starting more regularly, and it was great.
Yeah. Agreed. We will do our top 3 players, but I think I told you guys last night that now granted it was before the goal, but I don't know if it necessarily changed it for me, but I think he's probably in my top 3. We'll figure that out. Drew, you mentioned sort of not finishing chances. I think one of the big question marks hanging over this game was the total lack of a striker. And I think when the lineup was announced, a lot of us were like, what is going on here? Reports are that Augie potentially picked up a knock. Maybe it's a hamstring, so he might be out. So any hopes of, let's see Augie and Jacqueline on the field together. We might have to wait another month or 2, or who knows how long to actually see that happen. That said, I have, it's not really a theory, but it's an idea that I want to touch on. Playing, a bunch of midfielders on the field seemed to create enough chaos that Detroit didn't really know what was happening. It seemed to be working. I think all of the guys that we had on are really intelligent players, and that kind of plays into our favor a little bit. The movement was kind of fluid, and they were kind of covering and pressing for each other, and it seemed to kind of be working. But I don't know, Steve, your thoughts on, even though we've had this conversation of like, if it's not Augie, then who? Pablo was on the bench.
Right.
And so we have a striker that's on the bench, and Bob was like, I'm not playing you. So, I mean, no disrespect to Pablo, but it's just like, is this just a marketing ploy? Like, what if he's...
I think Bob is giving Augie a really long leash to find his footing in Pittsburgh. And I think that Bob has not had the trust yet in the other two guys that he's had to select in Larson and Pablo. And that doesn't mean that he doesn't think that they can't be good, but they're just not where he wants them yet to put them in for 80, 90 minutes. And so, I mean, we've seen this with Bob. He's going to do what he's going to do and make the decision he's going to make. And part of the challenge he always has is selecting the best lineup, not just putting the best player at each position out there. And I think that's what this was he thought, you know what, the team is stronger if we don't have an out-and-out striker, but we put in an extra midfielder and let them play a little more attacking and see what happens. What I don't like about it, though, is you're putting guys that are not target guys into positions where they're going to have to do hold-up play. They're going to have to do some things that they're not really used to doing. And so doing that for 90 minutes is a lot different than stepping up into somebody's spot in the middle of a game when that person moves out of position, right? And so I don't know if that works. I mean, I think about like the past decade of the false nine in particularly the Premier League. And this is almost like the not even false nine, the absent nine, right? And it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to see this week in and week out, but if we can find a way to score off of this, which, you know, what we were doing before wasn't resulting in goals, then maybe we run with it for a little while. I don't know.
I mean, to your point, 6 goals in 7 USL matches.
Right.
So like that's not going to cut it. We're kind of back into the problem that we saw last year. Part of me was thinking, so there's a number of factors at play. We could look 10 games down the road and be like, what were we worried about? Look, we're firing on all cylinders. You never know. You never know. But in this moment, we have thoughts, we have feelings. We are here to talk about them.
So I want to say something on that, Mike. Yes, in 10 games, we may be like, we are doing really good. Why were we worried? And then we're going to get to the end of the season, and we could be looking at something very similar to last end of the season, where it's like those early points mattered. And so I am trying to keep that in mind, that even if we hit a great run of form and we start tearing up the league, these early games in the league, this match in the cup, like those are important points to be picking up because they do make a difference in the overall standings.
And I also don't know, I mean, how much of this is Bob tinkering? How much of this is he's playing the cards that he has because guys are getting injured? We don't know. I do think that there is a conversation to be had of just like, well, guys are injured and he's doing the best he can do. I get that, but we've also sort of alluded to, you know, why are these injuries happening and why don't we have more depth in certain positions so that you're prepared for this, because guys are going to get injured. So I think there's only so much of a pass that you can give. It's kind of the situation that we're in. But the thing that crossed my mind, and I don't think this is actually true, I actually want to talk to him about it and be like, what's happening here? And I don't know if he'll be honest with me, and that's fine. But he has clearly tried to play Griffin in different positions all over the field. Last year it was center back, like trying out a new system. And yes, it was like,
why do you hurt me with that memory?
So hold on. So, you know, DG at center back, the excuse was that like, well, you know, we had some guys that were out. He kind of slid back and covered. But there's precedent for doing something like that. I mean, we're almost seeing Jackson Walty do something kind of similar. He's not an out-and-out center back, but he drops back and sort of plays that spot so that he can distribute the ball forward. And the fact that we've been playing DG sort of off of Augie's shoulder for the beginning part of the season, part of me is like, is Bob just finally like, you know what, we can't buy a striker, so why don't I take someone who really knows the system well and make him a striker? And I know Danny's gonna be like, that's not what's happening. But
Danny will never admit it, even if Bob said, I need you to be a striker.
Right, exactly.
He lines up as striker week in, week out.
Right.
So on that note, okay, I know I sounded pessimistic earlier, but I do want to say, like, I think last night's game showed like why the false nine system works so well over the last like decade and why it was like so big in Spain for a while. But I think it also showed the flaws of a back five, because and even with Jackson dropping in to rotate, when you have 5 defenders, not all of them are always paying attention to each other. When you have 4 defenders, they're at least talking and communicating, and we see, or at least we've seen them talk and communicate a lot better. But when we had 5, it seemed like there was a bit of that communication breakdown. So then we end up, a little bit off-footed, and Detroit gets this great chance. That being said, I wish I had like a clicker for the number of times. Oh, Pittsburgh's already all back. Detroit gets the ball, and Pittsburgh's already all the way back behind the ball. Like, the guys were like quick to defend, and then I would say the exact same thing on the as like a negative. We weren't as quick to attack, right? So it's not like we are definitely gearing as a very defensive team, which is great. Sure, defenses win championships, they say, but you also can't win a championship if you don't score a goal.
Well, so it's interesting because so I talked to Garcia this week, and he sort of alluded to the fact that this game is a good opportunity for some players who normally don't get minutes to get some minutes. That's not what we saw, at least from a starting 11. This was kind of like Bob throwing, I think, what he thinks is maybe his best out there. There might be 1 or 2 guys that we could probably argue replacements for, but for the most part, this is his guys. But it does raise a question of not necessarily throwing this game away, but could he have been taking an opportunity to just try another system, knowing that you're not risking dropping points in the league by doing something like this? So I don't know how much of this is just like, well, we don't have Augie, so we just have to do something, versus like, well, we don't have Augie, this might be a recurring thing. Should we take a shot at trying this like 5-2-3 system and see if this is something that we may want to do in league play? How's it going to work out? I don't know.
But we also, I was going to say, last season we had the 5-2-3 experiment. Most of last season was the 5-2-3 experiment. And yeah, you could say we have different personnel, but like at the same time, like we only have one out and out striker amongst our forwards. Like one true striker in our 4 forwards, right? So sure, we need a little bit more in the midfield, but then that's exactly the solution. We have so many midfielders. Why are we tinkering with our defense? Our defense has been working.
Has it?
It's when I would say
we've been losing games though.
We have, but they've come from small mistakes, small slips. Maybe there needs to be a personnel change in the defense, but it seems the 4-back does us the most favors. Maybe it's what's in front of our defense that's what needs to change.
I mean, if you look at the scores, it's all like 1-0, 2-1. Steve, I take your point of like, is the defense holding up? I think if our offense was scoring, we wouldn't be talking about the defense.
Right.
It'd be like,
I think the difference is what we saw last night was, and to kind of answer your question, Mike, I think what I take away from that is Bob saying, not so much let's try something out, but let's do something that I know works to steady the ship and get some confidence before we go back to trying to do something different. And for the most part, it worked. I mean, it took a really good goal to beat Randolph. And so, I mean, I think the Hounds looked much better defensively. We didn't have those moments where I was watching through and seeing things where I'm like, oh man, is this going to be somebody slipping or somebody making a mistake, right? Like, it looked good defensively. And that doesn't mean that Detroit didn't have their chances, but we dealt with those chances really well, I think, all night long. And so that's kind of where I'm wondering, is this Bob just saying, I need to do something to get these guys some confidence, and the best way to do that is to do what we know works and then build from there? Because I think it's got to be demoralizing for the guys. And so forget about what happens on the offensive side. Maybe we'll steal a goal with whomever, but let's make sure that we're not having that shakiness that I don't think he's happy with, even though he knows he's trying to do a different system that is a little more risky. That's my interpretation of it.
Yeah.
I also want to give the Detroit City keeper like some credit here. If I'm not mistaken, this is the same kid that I called out last year for being, like, at the end of last season, for being like one for the future. And from looking at Detroit's stats, it looks like they've only allowed in 3 goals. So I don't know if they've been using the same keeper the whole time or what the deal is, but in 7 USL games, they've allowed 3 goals.
Yeah.
So, like, this is exactly the kind of opposition that we need a very strong attack to break down.
Yeah.
We knew we were going to weather them defensively.
Yeah. One other takeaway that I had was it's interesting, all the conversations that we've had this offseason with the team, everything that we've seen thus far, there's been so much emphasis on possession.
God, I know you were going there.
And we had less possession in this game and we looked better. And it's just like, is that just sort of looking back to last year and not wishful thinking, but being like, you know what, we're just better as this counter-attacking kind of team? Or is it, I don't know. Steve, what's your read on that?
Well, first off, I've got to talk to the guy that actually is in charge of all of our like media clips and whatnot for the show and find out why we don't have a montage of you saying that all last season.
I'll get on the phone with him right away.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think we look better when we don't have a lot of possession because we're using a system that Bob has got the majority of these players extremely confident doing the job and doing the job well. And it's a system that if 3 guys in the back line know that really, really well, you can plug a couple other guys in and they can do their job without having to understand all the intricacies of it because there's enough guys back there around them to make it work, right? But even with that, we're not really even talking about that much difference, right? We're talking about Barnes and Beto being the guys that haven't done it, who I think we are all pretty much so far what we've seen from them. We have a lot of high hopes and we like what we see, even if there have been some mistakes here or there, that they look like the types of players that fit into this team really, really well. And so I think it's just that, right? That it's much easier to keep a clean sheet or look good even if you give up a late goal on a good play in a game like last night, than if you're still trying to figure out a new defensive system that the players aren't as well versed in.
Yeah. I think I mentioned last night that I'm happy with what I've seen of Barnes. And even when Etu comes back, I wouldn't mind seeing Barnes start and just push Etu up further.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, Steve, we've talked about that's something that they were kind of hoping to do at some point during the season. And to see Barnes step in and play so well, that gives you a little confidence to say, yeah, let's try it.
Yep.
The other thing about possession is that you can have more possession by the numbers, but if you don't do anything with it, it doesn't matter. And so we've said, and we continue to say, what did I say? 6 goals in 7 games or something like that. Like, we're not doing anything with the possession that we have. So if you're going to dominate a team with possession, you need to be able to cut that team open and actually score. And we haven't been. And so you're almost better off playing a little bit on the back foot, knowing that you can hit guys going forward. Let them dink the ball around, play a mid block or play a low block, and then try to hit them on the counter, as opposed to, well, we're going to dominate possession, but really, all of our passes are between our center backs, just trying to create space, and then we can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
So it was just interesting that jumped out at me, that we had 40-ish percent possession.
I think it was 45% of the game.
I mean, I will say it is easy to look like the better team when the other team is just passing the ball around in their own third, in their own defensive third, right? It's very easy, and that's what the Hounds did for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, that was the whole thing. The commentators, even on this restart, Detroit can't even get people into the box because of the high line that Pittsburgh's defense is holding. Yeah. So, like, it's really easy to look really, really, really good when you're just on defense, because you do get to say, okay, we're going to have a high line. Okay, we're not going to let them get into our box. Like, we controlled the game without the ball. That's great. Now we need to do the other half of that, right?
Which we needed to do all season, regardless of what's happening on the defensive side.
Right. Like, this is another situation. Like, our defense and like our defending has been like, yeah, we've shipped some goals, but we've been super, super good on defense. We know that's what a Pittsburgh team is good at, right? We need the other end of the field.
And I mean, listen, I love how the USL conveniently leaves out any sort of moments in the game where there could be some discrepancy as to whether or not something happened
no
or not
discrepancy,
from
Mike.
all of the highlights.
There's
But
no discrepancy. It wasn't over the line.
how do you know?
Go back and watch the actual game replay.
Yeah,
after the final whistle, they come back to it. It's not close.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
never mind. There goes 5
might-
minutes of me ranting. So,
If
what
I
I was
remember-
alluding to was there was a play towards the end of the game where there was a scramble in front of Detroit's net. It was alluded to the fact that Asumanu may have touched it in and it was cleared out. The refs just paid it no mind and the game just kept going. And that's the kind of case where if you're watching any game in any league anywhere else in the world, it would be like, let's see a replay. Let's talk about it. And it's just like, nope, just didn't happen. And it's just, that just leaves questions in the fans' minds. But even at that, if it is that clear that it didn't happen, how many shots that go like skyward do they put in the highlights? Why would you not just include that and be like, oh, it didn't happen? But it feels shady to me.
And I think so. The way I actually found it was in the post game on the like when I went back and looked in the post game as they're doing the shot of the game and save of the game. It was the save of the game. And then they had like 5 additional angles, including one from basically the end line, where you can really see that like it wasn't as close as it looked from some of the other angles. But you're right? Like, so put it in there because it's still a great highlight for what is it? Amosa, is that his name? Right? Like if I'm that guy, I feel gypped because like the broadcasters are saying, look, save of the game. And it's not even making the highlights of the game. Yeah, you're right.
Agreed. Mm-hmm. What other takeaways you guys have from this one?
I mean, man, Dick is probably watching his back right now. I think he welcomes the competition because Dick is that kind of guy. But at the same time, like, I think this has been the biggest challenge to Dick starting in 2 years. And that includes his like rough patch where he got, sat down for his.
No, I'll agree with you because his rough patch was rough, and so was everybody else at the same time.
Everybody was rough at the same time. This is like
there was no challenge,
right? Like there wasn't anybody who was doing outstanding in goal to take that seat, and that's not a slide on Jacob at all. But like Jacob has made a very impressive shout for getting some starts. Getting some actual league minutes.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to sort of see what happens now. I'm sure that if we talk to Bushy, he would have other sort of insight and he'd not be happy about that goal at the end. But Jacob, we've talked about this a little bit, how it was interesting that we not only brought back one keeper, we brought back 2, which Bob almost never does. And we also know that as an organization, they are extremely high on Randolph. So it's just, what does that mean? And what could that potentially mean for his development as he continues to grow and get minutes? And that is going to be an interesting position to watch over the course of the season and sort of see how things shake out. We've had other keepers come in that have been we've just assumed have been the starting keepers, and they get a few games, and then they're on the bench, and somebody else takes their spot. And this is what Bob always says he wants: is this type of competition, and to have somebody sort of arise. And there have been a few seasons where we haven't really had a solid number 1, and that's been problematic for various reasons. So hopefully that's not the case. But if Dick and Randolph and the third keeper are all pushing each other to the point that they're making it difficult for Bob and Bushy to pick one, that's a good thing for the team. So that's great. I'm happy for Jacob that he had such a good game, and we'll see what happens. Who gets to start at home against North Carolina this weekend? Yeah. It did dawn on me that no, I said it did dawn on me that we have yet to win when we are not wearing our classic gold and black striped kits. And part of me was like, is that the catalyst? Is that the thing? The superstitious part of me
because we've only worn those at home.
at home, and we only won at home. And so that also made me think that, looking ahead, say that for whatever reason we can only win at home, which would not be great. We have a game against North Carolina at home on Saturday. Then we have the Open Cup match against NYCFC in the middle of that next week. But then we're back on the road for 3 more games. So if we're able to get those 2 wins, great. But realistically, by the end of that 3-game away stretch, we will have played 10 games and we will be sitting on 10 points in the first 10 games, which is not gonna cut.
So, if we can only win at home, that's not catastrophic because we will pick up draws on the road. And if we win only at home,
Will we?
and every time at home, we would end up at 45 points, which is very good when you're considering that there's 4 less games this season.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
playoff
I think
line was 48 last year, right? So that's almost last year's playoff lines, but in 4 less games. So I'm just saying, if we win all 15 home games, that's the key.
Yeah, if we win all 15 home games and then bring home some draws, we won't be certainly at home during the playoffs, but we will
might
be in the
some
playoffs.
draws. Mike does not like this terrible argument that we're putting forward.
No, look, I mean, I think that I was thinking about this a little bit today. I think that I know myself personally, and for whatever reason, I feel compelled to speak on behalf of the fan base, which is not fair. Everybody sort of feels differently and thinks differently. But after doing this for 10 years, I think that I've built this team up, this organization up, to consistently think of them as a top 3, top 4 organization in the East. That's just my expectation. I know that there's going to be teams that have more money. I know that there's teams that have a little bit more infrastructure, but I feel like after being around as long as we have, knowing sort of the structure that we have, the expectation of being a top 3, top 4 team in the East feels realistic every offseason. But I think when you start a season like this, and we are losing games to the Battery, we're losing games to Loudoun, we're losing games to North Carolina, you have to start to think like, are we? Is this a case where, we talk to the players, we talk to the coaches, everyone's like, everybody is getting better. Every team is getting better. Competition is getting better. Are we getting left behind? We haven't even played Louisville yet. We haven't played Tampa yet. Like, I know Tampa's not having a great season, but these are other big clubs that, the past 2 weeks, we played Detroit in the Jagermeister Cup, and then we played Loudoun. Both of them have won like all of their games except against Louisville. So that game against Louisville, which is coming up in the next few weeks, is just looming. We have to go there. Mm-hmm. Just as a fan, I'm like, are we just no longer a top 3 or 4 team in the East perennially? Is it the case that we're a 7, 8 kind of team where you kind of squeak in and we're not a home playoff team anymore?
I mean, I think to kind of break that down, yeah, Louisville, I think, has established themselves as maybe the class of the league, definitively the class of the East. Charleston is another team that is perennially competitive, and they've got that longer history than the Hounds do, right? You're right. Tampa's not doing well right now, but they have demonstrated year in and year out that they are one of those clubs that should be in that conversation for top 2, 3 spots every year. We've tried to be there, but I think things have changed. And at best, now we're having to look at ourselves as we're not in those 3. We're asking ourselves, are we better than Detroit? Are we better than Rhode Island? And that's like wild to say that we're talking about a team in their second season in the league. But I think what we've seen with them and how ambitious they are, and sure, they may not be doing very well right now, but I think what we've seen is they're willing to do the things that are going to be important to be those teams in the future that are there. So they may be having an off season, just like Tampa's having an off season. But do I think that Rhode Island is going to be a Birmingham or an Indy that is always right at the bubble, but not quite there? I think their organization is built to be better than that. And then I look at a team like Charleston, who is just signing a Guatemalan international this week,
Mhm.
right? Like that's the difference to me, that Charleston is saying, we need something. What are we going to do? And they're going out and signing a Guatemalan international, not a team that is losing every game they're playing in CONCACAF. You're talking about a team that has been competitive and been on the bubble of making CONCACAF or World Cup tournaments over the past few years, right? So that is competitive in Nations League. And so that to me is like that's where we're not at that level, when our answer is Augie Williams. And that's not a slight on Augie, but we're talking about a guy that is good in the USL, but needs a good team around him to be his best. Not a guy that's going to elevate a team in and of itself by himself and put us there, right? And so I think you're right? You asked the question. It's money, I think.
True.
I mean, we aren't, from what I've seen from the Hounds organization, there's no pursuit of until Augie. Augie was like the first, like, not scalp, but like scalp that we brought to the team, right? Like somebody who's been successful. Everybody else is like mostly college, fresh out of college, year or two out of college. You know, Bob's giving them a chance on the team. Like that's basically the feel of the team, right? And you're comparing that with the rest of the league, who's like, oh yeah, we're signing this international, we're signing that international, we're scouting in, like, we have scouts in Spain, we have scouts in England.
Dude,
we have
look at
scouts
the
in Italy.
Riveters, like signing what the international keeper, and it's like
that was
great.
literally my next argument. Is like,
Yeah.
then you have the ambition of the Riveters, who, for a semi-pro team, they have 30 players on the roster, one of whom is playing for the U.S. Women's TST team this summer, who has logged time at the women's national team camp. Okay. And that's just like the basically the one player that the team was built around. The ambition of the Riveters seems to dwarf that of the Hounds right now. And that's for a semi-pro league. That's a semi-pro team.
Yes.
I have to keep
and
reminding myself
there's a
it's
difference in the
semi-pro team.
finances.
Sure.
Like I think we can't discount that.
Sure. You could buy like 5 stars for what you're paying one, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the ambition to say, you know what, we're going to splash the cash and stretch what, you know, it's a small budget, but we're going to spend towards our max to get these players, versus, oh, we'll just keep a low budget, build up a surplus kind of thing. Yeah, like exactly. We should have it. Again, it's crazy to me that of our 4 forwards, one is an out and out striker, one is going to college, and 2 are forwards who are usually like, you know, left, right striker. Like, you know, they're like wing forwards, right? They're not necessarily going to be right up the middle. How?
I think I would feel better about it too if we had midfielders who are consistently getting 8-9 goals a season. Like you see across the league, you have some of these attacking midfielders who are contributing from the midfield. Our midfielders are really good. They're not getting 8 to 12 goals a season in support of our strikers.
Our system isn't set up for the midfielders to be scoring in support of the strikers. I
disagree.
Like
I think it's a development of those players by Bob to develop the thing that he wants the most out of them, because we can see that Bob can allow a midfielder to go forward and score. And we saw that for years with Kenny Forbes. And yes, Kenny is one of the best all-time players in the USL. So I don't want to compare like other players to him, but I don't think that it is that Bob doesn't want his players doing that, but he's focused so heavily with this group of players. And I think it's to Danny Griffin's detriment that Bob played him as a defensive midfielder for so long and didn't allow him to develop as an attacking midfielder. But I do want to revisit the Riveters comparison, and I think for a very different reason. That what we're seeing with the Riveters, it's not even about the ambition of the players they're bringing in from outside. but it's the pipeline that they are building and that Scott is building for this semi-pro team and potentially a Division One USL Super League team in the future. And I think that's what we're all hoping from the academy.
Mhm.
And I think that's the difference, that Scott is embedded in the academy and seeing that through from academy players into college, into USLW, and then in the future into USL Super League. Whereas the Riverhounds are completely disconnected from the academy, with the exception of 1 or 2 academy contracts a year, but they're not playing, and the system is not built that the academy is a pipeline for players to make the jump from the academy to a Bob Lilly team. And that's, I think, part of it, that Bob is looking elsewhere. He's not looking at the academy. The academy is not aligned with Bob Lilly's system. That's the reality of what we have. At some point, does that change? Does Bob want that to change? Does Tuffy want that to change? Are they even thinking about that? Does Visser put his hand on the scale for that? I hope so, but I think that's a big part of it, that why we see the Riveters being so ambitious is they're able to pull players from the academy that are making a difference at all sorts of different levels. And we don't see that with the Hounds.
Ooh, pick me. Pick me.
You,
Mike.
Mike.
I'm gonna take out my tinfoil hat and I'm gonna put it on for a moment. This was a conversation that I did not mean to open this can of worms in Slack, but I'm gonna open it up here and just sort of float this idea out there. And this is very tinfoil hatty, but and we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but it all kind of ties into this whole conversation. Okay, Steve, you mentioned money. We mentioned Riveters and ambition. I think I floated the idea to you guys of, is there actually, so if you think about a team as a business, right? I'm not saying that's how you should think of it, but I'm saying if you think of the team as a business and you're looking at your return on investment, so I'm going to spend money on players. What am I getting back from that from a financial perspective? Okay. You spend money on players. With the goal at the USL is essentially to sell out the stadium. That's how you make money. You sell out the stadium, you sell merchandise, you sell gear. I don't know what the team makes from TV rights. I can't imagine that it's a ton. I'm guessing they're bringing in more from concessions and stadium seats and things like that. If that's the case, the team's doing a really good job of selling out the stadium, selling kits, selling food at the games, parking at the capacity that Highmark Stadium is right now. Even if we dump more money into this team, it's very difficult to get more money back because we've kind of maxed it out. Once we expand the stadium, completely different story.
This is where I think, as I've thought about this more since we had the conversation earlier in the week, I think I actually strongly disagree.
Okay, hold on. Let me finish the thought, and then I'm going to throw it to you. So, in my mind, when you look at teams like Louisville, who we have heard can sort of outspend others and bring in bigger players and sort of build a deeper team and whatever, is there actually a lot of incentive for us to spend more money on better players versus build a team that is perennially going to get into the playoffs, that's going to draw people to the stadium now, so you sell tickets. But even if we get into the playoffs in the 8th seed, what does that do? We're likely not going to have any playoff games at home. So I don't know how much more we're making from the TV rights for that, but from tangible money, it's probably not a lot. So at this point, until we expand the stadium, is there a ton of incentive to invest in the team in a way that gets them beyond a first game away playoff team? So like 8-5 versus 4-1. And where this ties into the Riveters is that the Riveters currently are not selling out Highmark. So you have to show that ambition because you have to draw people in now. The Hounds are already drawing people. And so it's kind of a different thing. But I'll stop there. That tinfoil hat is now going back on the shelf. Steve?
No, so I think it is, because I think that Do I think that what you're talking about is probably the way that the team is looking at it, the organization is looking at it? I think that that's 100% what's happening. But I think that as I've thought about this more and more, I think that our marketing arm of the organization is doing a really, really great job
Agreed.
of drawing fans in. I think the question I have and the answer I arrive at is we are either at or very close to the cap that they can do without the team being more competitive, right? That their job is really easy right now because they can fill a stadium of 5,000 people. But if the stadium is 10,000 people, if we are at the same level, are they going to be able to fill that stadium? I don't think we will be filling 10,000 seats with the performances we've seen over the past few years. And so I think that being able to say, we've got 1,000 tickets or 1,000 ticket demand every game that we're not able to sell to fans because, yeah, maybe it's more expensive now, but we've got those fans that want to come because they want to be in an environment where this is a team that is at the top tier of this league and competitive at that level and winning playoff games, right? And I think that's where it is, right? My other response is, I don't freaking care. First of all, it's not my money. You keep telling me you want to win a championship, then go out and spend the money and win a championship.
To your point, the second that the stadium expands, this all goes away. Yep. You have to draw people back in. And what's interesting is if the stadium is actually going to expand next season and the Hounds have a stinker of a year this season, they're going to have problems next year filling Highmark. And that becomes problematic.
I'm going to add to that. Never before in Pittsburgh history with the Riverhounds have we had a shitty hockey team, a shitty baseball team, and a probably very shitty football team. Okay. So nobody wants to watch.
For doing your part.
Yeah. Thank you for sucking this year. But we're talking the holy trinity of Pittsburgh sports is abysmal. Okay. The Hounds can only stand to benefit. Okay.
By winning.
And it's really crappy that with 2 wins and 7 points out of 6 games, I can say the Riverhounds are the winningest team in Pittsburgh right now. Okay. In 2023, I said the Riverhounds are the winningest team in Pittsburgh, and the Pirates were on a hot streak. Okay, like that's the difference.
I should have expected this from you, but I was not prepared for this argument at all, and I am here for it.
But but this is exactly what you want if you want to grow a pro team.
Yeah.
Like the environment is perfect for if the Riverhounds stormed out of nowhere to win the championship this year. Pittsburgh will show up at the doorstep whether or not they're paying for tickets.
Well, imagine the news. So we win the championship. All of a sudden, it's championship team, expanding stadium, adding more seats. Look at all the renderings. Look at the kit. Like it becomes a thing.
There'll be
and if it's a
for the
limp
Hounds
into the
play.
Playoffs team.
Yeah. Everybody's been living with that with the Steelers, and people are already saying the Steelers are a failure. And it's kind of almost a guarantee we slide in, the Steelers slide into the playoffs every year.
And I think we're not even talking in this, but we want the team to be talking about Division I.
Right.
And my question is this a team that even makes it to Division I if we play like we're playing now, or do we get relegated in the first season? Do we make it back up? Right? Like this isn't.
Oh no, I think we make it.
Right?
And if we're in Division I when it starts, I think the Riverhounds, as it stands, will stay in Division I. But if we're not in Division I, I don't see us getting promotion.
If we're in Division I, I was talking to my son about this.
We don't know.
In Division I, we're gonna have to have more money coming in from somewhere.
But that's so. And then if we're going to talk about prize money, so I know at least as of 2017, the prize money for winning the USL is $0. So while that's great and all, I think a Division I suggests there will be prize money for winning.
You'd hope.
A Division I suggests there will be prize money for being in the Division I.
But
and
I mean, you look at Europe, right? Like the
Mhm.
whole reason why you want to be in the top 5 is because then you get into the Champions League, and the Champions League means more games, which means more ticket sales, which means more money from TV rights. The further you get into in the competition, that's more tickets you're selling, that's more exposure you're getting, that's more merch that you're selling. It just keeps built. We just don't have that here.
It's why, even though the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup in Europe, while you'll only collect like what 2 million, 3 million for winning them, the big teams still care about them.
Yeah.
Because you get to fill your stadium. You get to sell all those tickets, you get to sell all that merchandise, you get to sell all of that stadium stuff to people.
I mean, that's why we should be looking at the Open Cup. We should be looking at the Jagermeister Cup and salivating, because these are extra games on the slate to sell more tickets, to sell more gear that you don't get if you're not in it. Yeah.
Especially the Open Cup. There is actually prize money for the Open Cup.
Right.
We got 25 grand a couple years ago in the Open Cup.
I'm going to close up the can of worms that
I have another can I want to open, but I won't.
We're already at like 51 minutes. So are we gonna lose something by not having this conversation right now? Or can we wait till next week? Okay,
but it's just like my next thought is juicy, I think.
Dude.
Now I want it.
Yeah, it's just all right, just drop it. Let's go.
Is Bob Lilly able to spend the money to get the Hounds to be a winning team at a Division I level or not?
I don't want to.
I told you I didn't want to open this.
I don't want to disparage the guy, but I don't think the answer is yes. I think that the way that he wants to spend money and build a team is not to spend money to build a team.
Right.
I would love for Bob.
And it's not Lily out. It's asking the question of what needs to change in the organization to ensure that his model of player development doesn't hurt the team long term.
Look, no offense. He hasn't won anything here other than a player shield 1 year. Which, if you ask the players, they don't care about.
And let's be real. Danny Griffin won that player shield because the team was abysmal until he came back.
Yeah. True. We keep cutting you off.
I'm sorry. No, it's okay. I have a solution. If Bob could be like a Hounds 2 or the Hounds under 20 coach, because that's the development. Our development is no longer 23 and up. Those players, you have college to develop. You have your academy to develop. So yeah, I appreciate continued development, but at the point you're 23 and on the senior team, you're kind of set, right? Like your mold's mostly formed.
It's a good thing Bob doesn't listen to the show because he'd never talk to you again.
All right, okay.
No, I know Bob has this ability to mold people, but like
you're lucky you get to hide behind Mondo's mask at the game so that Bob can't come after you.
He doesn't recognize me. It's okay.
Speaking of, we're gonna put a cap on all of this. We might revisit this conversation later. But speaking of Mondo,
it's time for Mondo's moment. The top moment of the game from the Mandalorian.
This week's Mondo moment comes with the 60th minute of the Jagermeister Cup matchup between Detroit and Pittsburgh, where on an insane volleyed shot from a Detroit player, Jacob Randolph makes a reactionary save to keep the scoreline at 0-0. This is the way.
This has been Mondo's moment. Go Hounds.
That guy sounds familiar. Was he going Sith there? Is that what the hood was? Or just...
I mean, I was going to say he looks kind of hungover, but that can't be right.
So yeah, to Mondo's point, Jacob Randolph had a good game. Guys, we need to pick a top 3 from this one. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to say that I will include Randolph in my top 3. I don't know where in the top 3, but I think he belongs in the top 3. Drew, is there someone else you would like to nominate, either in a 1, 2, or 3 position?
I don't have a position as well, but I would also like to nominate Jackson Malty, because this morning I was thinking to myself, man, I wish I had a little clicker to count the number of times the commentator's like, oh, and it's Jackson Walty again, and Jackson Walty. And
I was
Walty.
waiting for you to be like this
Walty.
morning when I was having coffee with him. Just like,
No. Listen, this is like the first night I got a full night of sleep. Okay, last like a week, so there was no communing with anybody until like noon. But
yeah, I'm not
but
opposed
no,
to
that's
Walty.
yeah, no, that was my thought. Like he was literally everywhere again. And I say this as if like we're to expect this from him now. Yeah. My apologies.
Steve, you can nominate a third person. You can refute any of the people that we've nominated.
I think those two are the easy ones. And then from there, it is a sea of choices that I just am having such a hard time distinguishing between. And I think there were a lot of players that either did a lot of really good things in this game or did things or didn't do things that made them look a lot better compared to previous performances. And so I'm really, really conflicted on this. And so
the team picked DG as their man of the match, and they put a bunch of stats behind it. We talked about, I thought Barnes had a really good game. He impressed me. I'm leaving this to you.
Yeah. And I like both of those shouts. I think in a game like this, though, the player that actually, to me, made the biggest difference, even out of the two you've mentioned, was Sean Suber being able to direct the defense and keep the game where it was, right? Like, I think without Suber's experience and leadership in the back line, this game gets away from the Hounds much earlier, and it's a bloodbath. And so for me, I think Suber is top of the list for me because I don't think that even Walty is where he needs to be without Suber's direction behind him. I think he was masterful this game.
I'm not opposed to Suber at 1. Drew, do you have an argument for him not to be at 1?
I do not have an argument for him not to be at 1.
All right.
I was going to say Suber was my personal top 3. So,
all right. So we'll say Suber at 1. Where do Walty and then Randolph fall?
I would put. Oh man,
it's easy to take Walty for granted at this stage.
Yeah, that's also.
And I'm going to take Walty for granted and say that Randolph played fantastically, right? Like this game again. That's another player that I think kept the game winnable for the Hounds.
Yeah, but also like the cleanup that Walty did. If Walty wasn't there, A, tackling, B, cleaning up other people's tackles, you have Detroit getting that second ball and getting 2-3 chances on goal each time they came down the field. So like it's hard to say one over the other there.
Right.
Because they're both like, can we give them both the tie and split the points? 1.5.
No, that's the point I am with all three of these players. I'm like, roll the dice and see who comes out. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, let's
go biblical and cast some lots.
Listen, at this point, Walty would he could not be on the list for 2 weeks and he'd still be sitting at the top.
I would say this game should not count towards the blackboard because technically this game is not league.
Look,
Can we give Mike some time to figure out what he wants to say about the player ratings and ask him why he has grass drawn on the bottom of the board?
Oh, so
is that our new turf?
The grass on the board was because so for those who really want to know, it is a chalkboard, but I use it's like a liquid chalk. It's like a marker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
like they use the grocery stores.
Yeah, so my white chalk was starting to run out, and I went, "Oh, you can get colored chalk." And so I had green, and I was like, "What can I do with green?" And so I just scribbled grass on the board. But I will say, I am going to try to keep just half of the board for the men's team because I fully expect us to do this for the Riveters as well. And so this list is going to get to a certain point, and then there's going to be names on the list that aren't actually on the board. They're just
And
we keep tracking them somewhere else.
so by the time the season finishes, Mike is going to have like 8 boards behind him by all
Yes.
the new things we add.
Yes,
I think the Riveters deserve their own board, honestly.
I was gonna say hashtag buy Mike a bigger board.
right. Like
I just need some chalkboard paint. I'll just like paint the
Scott
whole
and
wall
Reagan don't have.
Oh, that's right.
counts.
I don't have them as coach. Okay. All right.
I mean, technically, we should put Bob up there too because
Okay, put the lid back on this can too. We'll revisit this later. Randolph and Walty, how do we want to break this tie? I kind of feel like Randolph 2, Walty 3, but then I also feel like that's like Walty succumbing to his previous success. But I think that there were a couple of big saves that
Yeah.
Randolph made that I think earned him the second spot. That's just me personally.
I can agree with that.
And
Okay.
And I think there's some conversation about Randolph on that goal. And I think he did everything he could. I mean, he was covering the far side of the goal and it got crossed behind him and he still made a good effort on it. So,
I mean, when a defender leaves an opponent wide open, that close to the box, the chance of him saving it, even if he knew it was coming, was going to be low.
What makes this interesting is now both Dick and Randolph have the exact same number of points if we do that. So we'll be having our own little mini intrigue. That is what we think. Let us know what you think. We did put out player ratings as soon as the game was over on Substack, mongols.substack.com. Thank you to Justin who wrote them this week. We said it's typically sort of a collaborative effort. There were a bunch of us kind of all over the place yesterday, and he stepped up and did it. I agreed with his ratings as well. I thought he did a really good job. So go check that out. Subscribe to us over on Substack. You will get those to your email automatically, literally like as soon as the game is over in most cases. We will revisit what counts for what and when, Drew, because we do the player ratings for every game, but Josh doesn't do a Dogs of War for every game, depending on competition. So like there might be a sweet spot here. Do we do it for USL competitions, but not Open Cup? Because we didn't do the ratings for the Open Cup for this. So like maybe I think we kind of try to do this for as many games as we can. Sorry, there's like a paper wasp that was flying right at my face and is now on the ceiling above me. So I should probably go tend to that. Guys, anything else that you want to talk about before we get out of here in this one?
Nope.
No.
Cool. Fun show. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. I always appreciate it. And thank you for listening and watching. Everybody who's out there, we appreciate everyone's been watching live and adding to the conversation. Chandler P. Chumsworth, sorry. We did put one of your quotes up on screen that we referenced. We just didn't read it out. So we appreciate the conversation and the contribution.
So participate in the comments because you might see your comment on screen.
Exactly.
If we're paying attention.
If we're Josh, get better soon, buddy. We will we'll talk to everybody very, very soon.
See ya.
This is the one.